So the project team is a collaboration between MOPAC, the Open University and Betsy Stanco providing strategic advice. The way the project is going to work is that we will, and we already have done this, we've started by engaging with learning and development needs across all of the 43 forces, and we're also engaging very much with the police and crime commissioners and chief constables. So there is a good connection between the project and UK policing. We're also working very closely with the College of Policing and their implementation team to ensure that we don't duplicate and we really optimise the work that both of us is doing.
The project is set up where we have a senior user group that discusses the strategic direction of the work, liaising closely with the College of Policing. I'm more involved in that interface between the forces and the academics, and it's about bringing together some of the realities in terms of what we're trying to achieve, particularly around culture, because I think the culture of police service per se and learning development within that has its pros and cons, and I think we can't progress this work effectively and have credibility if that's not reflected in some of the thinking. However, I'm so reassured by some of the senior stakeholders in forces around the country, including my own, the Metropolitan Police Service, that that there is the energy there, and it's just about harnessing that energy and getting the right people involved to drive this forward, whilst recognising that there is a huge culture change to effect with this work.
Well, I believe one of the areas this project is going to look at is what's happening in other organisations. And I think an analogy was made to a teaching hospital. It's not just about hospitals, but other organisations have maybe a more advanced culture than us. So I believe the project will look at other research in other organisations and bring that to say, could any of this work for L&D within policing?
Well, certainly what we're going to do is do some research to find out what's actually happening in forces to start with. But actually there are a number of opportunities, so the actual programme board itself has got representatives from quite a few forces on it already. We have an external reference group of forces, and actually what we're trying to do is, rather than create our own meeting structures, to make sure we're linking into existing meeting structures where forces are represented either in learning and development communities or chief officer groups. So we're actually going out to them, trying to build engagement, trying to get their ideas and trying to work so we actually deliver something which is really valuable.
So the timeline of the project is funded between 2017 and 2019. The first few months has been the setup and engagement phase. We're now moving into the first baseline, which will take place in April and May 2018. We then have two phases of the project which will be running concurrently. One of them, I suppose, drawing information and data from a whole range of sources, looking at, I suppose, trying to define what does a good learning and development department for policing or learning and development function for policing look like, but also beginning that deep dive work and drawing out the learning from those action research projects. We anticipate that those two phases running concurrently will run well into 2019, probably March, April time. We will then move into conducting the final baseline and developing the final set of products, which will be available from probably the end of September 2019. There may well be some sort of iterative products which are available as we go, and we will absolutely be sharing those through the National Learning Network throughout that period.
This is quite an ambitious project for 2 years, so we've got a big agenda. We hope to work very collaboratively with forces to try and enact what we'd like to do. It's got a number of elements to it. So the first element is we're creating a baseline to really understand how learning and development is happening right at the moment. How many staff are there? What are they doing? What's their approach to learning and development and training? And then towards the end of the project, we're going to ask similar questions again, and that will enable us to look at where progress is happening. Now that baseline is about all 43 forces together, so no force will be named or identified, but we want to look at what it looks like across the whole of England and Wales.
What this project is going to do is to, first of all, focus on action research. That is, we're not going to just go off and do research somewhere else and then come back and say, behold, we have a whole new method. What we're trying to do is actually work directly with learning and development units across the country, as many as we possibly can, both having a national landscape, but have some really deep dives into particular ways of different kinds of forces can work, and to move into, again, the heart of a police service so that they can become much more proactive, prospective units, as well as beginning to uplift their own vision and staff to meet the requirements of a new age of learning and development.
The second element goes from very wide to deep, and we're asking for volunteers from 5 police forces. We've got a number volunteering already, so I think we're going to have to choose. But looking at different forces to really drill down and look in much more detail at what happens in learning and development and training in different areas, initial training or specialist training, leadership development and so on, to really try and understand in much more detail what's happening there under those budgetary constraints, with those demand pressures, with that kind of demographic.
Well, Lizzie and Betsy came to Thames Valley to do a deep dive. And it was very much, I think, for them to get an understanding of what a police force learning and development department looks like. So we had coffee, and we then did a tour, and we did a tour of the site. And I think they were impressed. It wasn't quite what they were expecting, I think, because it isn't just about classrooms. There are lots of other facilities that we have to do that sort of practical learning for people in the police service, officers and staff. So we had a tour round, and then actually we sat down with I have a quality assurance team, and we all sat down together because at the moment that team does train our trainers and qualifies our assessors and coaches and all that sort of thing. And so it was important that that team understood what the new world, where we're going, and we involved them from the beginning.
The benefits for me between practitioners and academics working together, I think, are huge. I've been working with academia, as I said, for 14 years, and for me, whilst it's not all a bed of roses, and I'll be totally straight on that one, I do believe the benefits far outweigh the negatives. And what I want to see, and one of the benefits I'd like to see this project deliver, is if not only can we deliver a new learning development model for policing, but if we can also develop the practitioners within police learning development, that would be fantastic, and I think it would give them a renewed confidence in the future.